Many people consider this the greatest Filipino film of all time. Lino Brocka's masterpiece, Maynila sa mga Kuko ng Liwanag, tells the story of a man's lost love and his unraveling of the myth that is the Manila Dream. It starts with Julio Madiaga, a young fisherman from the island of Marinduque who arrives in Maynila in the 1970s in search of his lover, Ligaya. Coming to Manila, like any other provincial man believed, Julio was also seduced by the promise of the Manila Dream. It was that mythical idea that the city holds the key to better life and a brighter future. His first taste of Manila's reality comes through a construction job, where he encounters the Taiwan system, a corrupt practice where workers are cheated out of their rightful wages. Here, he faces the reality of abuse of power and wage stealing.
Ganito yan, pare. Sa araw ng sahod, yan ang sahod mo. Sasabihin naman ng malabat, walang pera. Pero may Taiwan, sabi ng pagador. Aabunuhan muna namin. Pero may kaltas ng 10%.
He tries to question the system, but he was dismissed both by the foreman, seeing it as naive anger, as well as his fellow construction workers, attributing it to innocent idealism.
Pare, huwag ka uli magkakamaling kumibo at talsi ka sa trabaho.
It's here that Julio meets several workers. Particular is his meeting with Benny, a construction worker who dreams of becoming a singer and who embodies the very Manila dream that brought him to the city. But dreams in Manila have a way of turning deadly. Just as Julio starts to have that hope and dream the same dream, Benny dies in a construction accident, his body swept under the rubble. A brutal foreshadowing of how the city consumes its dreamers. Julio was eventually let go by the construction company. Desperate and without money, he meets Bobby, a call boy, who let Julio stay in his apartment for the night. And here, Julio peels yet another layer of this underbelly of Manila. Julio was introduced by Bobby into prostitution.
Hindi kita pipilitin sumama sa akin. Pero kung pera hinahanap mo, hindi problema yan.
Money is quick and easy. Without manual labor, it's still slaving away his body. The movie made the paradox clear that Julio always had that choice of not doing it, but simultaneously asks its audience if he really did have a choice. Eventually, Julio was reacquainted with an old friend, Paul. Together, they navigate the gritty and grimy concrete jungles of Manila with its depressed communities and neon lights. Along this journey to find his beloved, he encounters various characters who represent different phases of urban poverty. There's Perla, whose husband Atong was killed and whose family was displaced when landowners burned down their shanty town. There's Imo, a former construction worker who managed to study and land a good job, but from actuations would seem to be disconnected from the proletarian struggle. And then there is the police, who rob Julio of his diary and his money, a stark reminder of the police brutality and corruption that flourished during martial law. When Julio finally reunites with Ligaya, the truth about her fate unfolds. Mrs. Cruz, who had promised her education and good work, had deceived her. The peculiar building Julio had been watching was indeed what he suspected, a place where Ligaya was forced into prostitution and became the kept woman of Atek, an unscrupulous mestizo de Sangley. She's now pregnant with Atek's child, and the innocent provincial girl Julio once knew has been utterly transformed by the city's cruelty.
Maswerte raw ako at inaalagaan niya ako. Ibang parang malaking utang na loob ko pa yun sa kanya. Nagtapat sa akin ng gago. May gusto raw siya sa akin.
Julio and Ligaya plan for an escape, but this plan would not come into fruition. Paul informs Julio that Ligaya has died, allegedly from falling down the stairs, though the bruises on her body suggest otherwise. Consumed by rage, Julio stabs Atek to death and flees through Manila's slums, pursued by an angry mob. The film ends with Julio facing his implied death at the hands of his own people who, like him, were once drawn to the city by its false promises. Director Lino Brocka once explained his vision for this film, and I quote, "I wanted to show a panorama of the city, how a country boy is corrupted there. Liwanag here reflects the neon signs which attract the provincials, like moths to flame." He compared Manila to the Ibong Adarna from Filipino folklore, a singing bird that enchants its listeners to sleep and then on them, turning them into stone. The provincial is seduced by the city, and the city on them. End quote. This brutal metaphor captures the essence of what Brocka achieved with Maynila sa mga Kuko ng Liwanag. The film systematically deconstructs the myth of progress that was being promoted during the Marcos era. The idea that Manila represented modernity, opportunity, and hope for ordinary Filipinos. Instead, Brocka shows us two Manilas existing simultaneously. There is the Manila of neon lights and promised opportunities, the one that lures people like Julio and Ligaya from their provinces. And then there's the Manila of slums, exploitation, and death, the one that actually awaits them. The film's visual language reinforces this duality. The flashbacks to Marinduque are bathed in the warm, golden light reminiscent of Fernando Amorsolo's paintings, idealized images of provincial life, where Julio and Ligaya appear as innocent sweethearts. But even these scenes carry the seeds of tragedy, as the poverty that drives people to Manila is already visible beneath the surface beauty. In contrast, Manila is portrayed through harsh, unforgiving imagery. Brocka uses rapid cuts and gyring transitions to mirror the disorienting, overwhelming nature of city life for someone like Julio. The construction sites, the cramped living spaces, the neon-lit streets, everything feels claustrophobic and predatory. What makes this film particularly devastating is how it shows that the Manila Dream isn't just a lie, it's a trap. The characters know the city is destroying them, yet they can't leave. As one character observes, Manila is only paradise for the privileged, but for ordinary Filipinos, it's a battlefield.
Mas mahirap dito, pare. Masarap dito kung may pera ka. Kung wala, tepo ka.
Still, they prefer to stay in chaotic Manila rather than return to the provinces because they can't accept the fate of being mere farmers or fishermen for the rest of their lives. This is perhaps the most insidious aspect of the Manila Dream. It doesn't just promise a better life. It makes people ashamed of the life they already have. The city creates a false hierarchy where provincial life is seen as inferior, even as it systematically destroys those who abandon it. Ligaya Paraiso's name, literally joy paradise, becomes tragically ironic in this context. She represents not just Julio's lost love, but the lost paradise of provincial life that he can never truly return to. Her transformation from innocent girl to exploited woman mirrors the transformation of the Manila Dream itself, from promise to nightmare. The film's ending offers a glimmer of hope. Through a protest rally that Julio witnesses, suggesting that collective action might be the only way to break free from this cycle of exploitation. But even this hope comes with a price. Julio's own death at the hands of his fellow Filipinos, showing the city's corruption, has turned its victim against each other. Maynila sa mga kuko ng liwanag remains one of Philippine cinema's most powerful indictments of urban inequality and the false promises of modernization. Brocka didn't just make a film about one man's tragedy. He created a mirror that reflected the experiences of countless Filipinos who had been seduced by the city's lies. The film's power lies in its refusal to romanticize either the province or the city. It shows us the poverty that drives people to Manila, but it also shows us the greater poverty, moral, spiritual, and human, that awaits them there. Nearly 5 decades after its release, the questions Maynila sa mga kuko ng liwanag raises about urban migration, economic inequality, and the price of progress remain as relevant as ever. The neon lights still flicker in the darkness, and the moths still come, drawn by the same old promises.
I'm always dreaming, dreaming.